Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz pianist and composer Jeff Lefkowitz-Brown. We talked at length about his career and new 2021 CD, Open World. He's been very busy up to this point in his career. He's toured the world with pop superstar Taylor Swift, played with jazz greats from Dave Brubeck to Clarence Penn, and been a member of Arturo O'Farrill's multi-Grammy winning Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra. He is originally from Elmira, New York, and he established himself as a jazz prodigy at the age of 11, performing throughout New York State under the mentorship of local jazz hero George Reed. He's got a great story. Enjoy.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, you bet. Big fan of your work, so thanks for taking a minute.
Thank you.
It.
Yeah, thanks so much, Joe. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm really glad to be doing this. Thanks for thinking of me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into Onward. And, the past year and a half, we've all, there's been an absence of live music, limited interaction with fans. What does it mean to release this album now?
So, yeah, this album, Open World, it's really celebrating the kind of the digital connectivity that we've been able to have during, what's been such a difficult time and a time where I think a lot of us have felt pretty disconnected. When the pandemic first started, I quickly started to figure out how to do remote recording and was fortunate enough to have a couple guys really helping me a lot with production along the way. And we were able to put together these remote big band projects. And then, after a little while, we decided to step it up and we took on this idea of actually recording with musicians around the world. And so we recorded with musicians that, they're a country of origin, stems from 23 different countries, and we were able to record with 30 different musicians, and it was really special to celebrate that connection. I've started to tour again domestically, but still the international stuff is still a bit on hold these days, just with the complexities of travel restrictions, and so to be able to do such an international project, digitally really meant a lot. So, that's the idea behind Open World, just celebrating this, the miracle of the modern age and still being able to stay connected despite, the tremendous difficulty that has come from this pandemic.
So what do you hope the listener gets from this album when they download or buy it?
Just such a international effort that we put into music. So, I hope that it will be profound to the listener, just understanding how global of a project it is. There are people that I've worked with from around the world that, normally I would never be able to get into one room together. So I think that was special. Also, the mixing engineer, Dave Darlington, who's just a tremendous Grammy-winning, mixing engineer, just an amazing audio engineer who really brought the thing to life and, locked everything in so well. So the band, I think, actually sounds like tremendously tight, despite the fact that we, not a single musician recorded it at the same time or together. It was a huge challenge and definitely the biggest undertaking that I've ever done for an album. But I found it to be really rewarding. And I think, for the listener, it will be exciting to hear, how tight we were able to get everything, despite, it being a remote process.
It seems like things have moved pretty fast. How do you feel about the speed of things and things catching momentum for you?
Yeah, I've actually lost track at this point. I think this is my 9th album release, believe it or not. It's been exciting, my career has developed in a lot of ways. I have several 100,000 followers on social media for my work as a jazz musician, and a lot of young listeners, which I think is fun because I grew up, thinking that, that I wouldn't be able to get my peers and young listeners to check out what I'm doing. So, it's pretty cool to have so many young fans out there, and we just finished a trio tour that we did recently over the past week, and we were able to sell out a bunch of venues, and just feels really special to be back on it and connecting with people in person again, and to have gotten to this point in my career where I have the audience that I have. I feel really fortunate.
And you've been around some big names over time. I mean, you have Taylor Swift, you have Dave Brubeck, there's Arturo O'Farrill. There's a lot of people. What have you learned from them that you, in turn, have used either for fuel for you or to teach the younger musicians you're around?
Yeah, I learned various things from all the artists that I was fortunate enough to work with. You know, obviously Taylor wasn't a jazz musician, but working with such a big pop production was very cool to see, you know, how they run that machine. Yeah, you know, I would say, you know, right now I tour a fair amount with Chris Bodie, and you know, I am really enamored with the show that he puts on, and how, you know, his live concerts are very different from his recorded music, which is also really fantastic. But his live concerts really just are so entertaining, and the audience just always comes away, so captivated by the performance. And it goes into so many different directions, with everything from, you know, funk and fusion to straight ahead jazz and even opera and classical crossover. So it's really inspiring to see how he puts on a show. Yeah, that's something that I certainly have gotten to take a lot away from.
You're a native of Elmira, New York. You were established very early on, by the age of 11, on the keys. Was it always a very early conclusion that you were going to be a musician? How did all this start for you?
Yeah, so I mean, my dad played keys and but a saxophone. Yeah, but you know, I'm a saxophonist. You know, started playing with an incredible drummer, George Reed, who was kind of a local legend. I lived in New York for many years, and then transported up. You know, he brought his career up to Elmira, New York. He was just a legend on the local scene. There's actually a great scene in Elmira, New York, which is pretty far out of New York City. He really took me under his wing, you know, imparted a lot of wisdom onto my growth as a musician, and I'll forever be grateful for that. It was an amazing club that was around back then called Green Pastures. Sadly, the owner passed years ago, and you know, the club closed around that time as well. But while I was growing up, there was this club called Green Pastures. It was this amazing black-owned jazz club. The community there was really incredible, and they really embraced me, and I learned so much from the experience. Something that I'll forever be grateful for.
So, what was the first live show that you saw that really blew you away?
You know, it's hard for me to remember, since I've seen music from such a young age, with my dad being a musician. But I did get to see Sonny Rollins when I was, I think, like 9 years old, and so it was very special being able to see a legend at such a young age, and that was really inspiring for me, as I just picked up the saxophone around that time.
So what were some other inspirations for you? Were there others that just really fueled the way that you saw music and wanted to get your own voice?
You know, Sonny was a huge inspiration. Absolutely, Dexter Gordon, Hank Mobley, John Coltrane, needless to say, Johnny Griffin, Charlie Parker, Sonny Stitt, Gene Ammons, Lester Young. You know, I mean, it's just, I have certainly tried to immerse myself in the lineage and tradition of this music, and yeah, you know, I've loved every step of the way.
You know, when you hear the word prodigy, has that been something that how does that resonate with you? I mean, obviously, you know, you've been dedicated to the craft. When you hear prodigy, how does that ring for you, and how has this been such a smooth thing for you to get involved with playing the keys?
You know, as I mentioned, my dad was a saxophonist, so I grew up with saxophone, and picking up sax was just only natural for me. It was his favorite instrument. You know, I was just really fortunate to be raised with music around the house, and to, you know, be immersed in that jazz club, Green Pastures in Elmira, New York, which was so integral in my development. You know, having the drummer George Reed take me under his wing, it made it a really, I think, natural, organic process for me. Yeah, I feel really fortunate to have had that background.
So, you know, the one thing about the pandemic is it's been a real time of self-reflection. And I'm wondering, what did you learn about yourself that maybe you didn't realize before the pandemic that's going to make you stronger as you get back out into the world and on the stage?
Despite the tragic circumstances, it was and has been a nice opportunity to look inward and reflect, as you mentioned. Yeah, it's been a nice time to, you know, practice and compose and, you know, spend time in solitude, which, you know, I try to make the most of. As a musician, that is something that we are used to doing, as they're developing our craft takes so much time, in solitude like that. Yeah, and I was also fortunate that I have accompanied jazz lesson videos that I was able to grow online during this time, and so I just sort of doubled down on that, and it was great to make a lot of educational content, and we published a lot of master classes and ebooks, and great to be able to dedicate that time to my audience, as I have a lot of people who have wanted to learn from what I do, which is really just passing on the wisdom that I've learned. And yeah, it was nice to take that the opportunity over the past year and a half to spend more time making that content since I was just off the road.
So you've been in a variety of different outfits, from big ones like Taylor Swift to smaller ones in clubs, and you've been to a lot of places with a lot of musicians around the world. And I'm wondering, what's the best part of being a professional musician for you? What do you like the best about the process?
Connecting with an audience is very special in a way that's profound. And with jazz and improvised music, it's really special to be creating music on the spot and improvising and spontaneously composing, with the energy of an audience around you is truly special. And that's why I've always been so dedicated to this craft, is appreciating the blessing that it is to be able to make my life in this music.
If you could get into a time machine, go back in time and see any jazz musician at any period, where are you going to go? Who are you going to see, and maybe who would you want to talk to when they get off stage? There
would be certainly so many to mention, but just a few, I suppose, would be John Coltrane, Dexter Gordon, Charlie Parker. But there are literally dozens of legends whom I've idolized. I don't think I would, if I had the opportunity, in an alternate reality, to go back in time and communicate with any of these guys. I don't think I would really say or ask much. I really just want to observe, and I would just feel blessed to be in their presence.
So why do you love jazz?
Because jazz is the music that, one, improvisation, and for the reasons that I mentioned before, the spontaneous creation, the spontaneous composition, and how you can communicate with the other acoustic instruments that you're playing with, or sometimes electric these days, of course. But the spontaneous creation is very special. The nature of improvisation, to me, is the purest form of self-expression. When you're improvising, you're essentially speaking through your instrument in real time, and you are having a conversation with the band members, and you're presenting your truths to the audience or the recording equipment around you. Yeah, jazz is the music that's the most improvised, and the heritage of this music is truly special and sacred, and just to be able to study this music and do my best to speak this language in a way that does it justice is a humbling experience through and through.
So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fan base, but ultimately you live your life. You have a perception of you. Who do you think you are?
I don't think that you can really describe yourself as a person in words. I think we're far more complex than that. The billions of people on this planet all have a unique set of DNA, so I think it would be futile to attempt really describing our essence in words. I don't even know where I would start.
That's a good answer. That's the start right there. Hey, Chad, thank you for taking some time out for Neon Jazz today. Good luck with the album and the return to the stage, man.
Thanks so much, Joe. Appreciate your giving me a call here. It was great to connect.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Chad for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.